Hey guys, Shadow Reviewer here. Now, I tried creating a poll a couple of months ago, but for some reason, YouTube is not allowing me to do that. So, keep that in mind as I do this video poll announcement. What's the poll? Well, at at the start of April, I am gonna be finishing up H2O Just Add Water. And I can't decide what show should I cover next. I want to do that show. Ooh, yeah, but there's another show I want to cover. It's a big ass dilemma. So, I want to do this. I'll read it out to you. What is your favorite television show? Pick 5 or less of your favorite, or add one that isn't there to the list. Okay, what I mean by that is, you pick the 5 shows that I am going to be counting down on this list, or add one that I haven't mentioned to the list, and I'll tick it off. And I'll be announcing in the middle of April. I'll announce the date later on in the year, at the start of next year, and I'll be picking 3 TV shows. The shows with the highest amount of signatures, I'll be picking the top 3. And those are the shows that I'll be covering for the rest of the year. If one of those shows has less than the other 2, or less, I'll be going through this and looking through who has the second amount of magnet signatures, and I'll be covering that, and I'll be going from there, and so on and so forth. Now, I want to make a few rules before I get started. First, these are the top 10 shows I would like to cover the most. Let me know down in the comments if you agree with my list. First off, a few ground rules. Firstly, no reality shows. I'm sorry, I can't bear watching reality shows. Don't get me wrong, there are some good reality shows out there, like The Biggest Loser. I like that show, but I don't think they'll be able to cover it. And the other one, I just can't bear the idea of a reality show, in my opinion. I mean, it feels fictional, but it's not. I don't know. It's hard to explain why I just don't like reality shows that much. It's just, I just don't feel comfortable reviewing them. I only review fictional shows because, well, yeah, I'm only reviewing fictional shows, so no reality shows. Sorry to all the reality shows fans out there. Second, I am considering TV reboots of previous shows. What do I mean by this? Well, there are a couple of TV shows that I want to review that I'll be mentioning later on this list that had got rebooted at some point. And I will cover them. Keep that in mind. Regardless if they're good or absolute garbage. And there aren't enough. And honestly, I would be asked anyway, why aren't you covering the reboot? I will be covering it. Don't worry. 3. I will only be covering shows that have at least 3 seasons or more. If there's a show that has 2 seasons, I will not be covering it. Unless they announce the 3rd season, then I'll put it on the list. It's just that, the first show I started with, H2O, has 3 seasons, so I might as well go with that rule. If there's a show that has 3 seasons or more, I will be covering it. If there's not, sorry. Which sadly means, for the Sonic fans, I will not be covering the Knuckles show. Unless it gets 2 more seasons sometime in the future, I will not be covering it. Sorry. Number 4. I can consider YouTube shows. What do I mean by this? Well, TV shows that can only be viewed on YouTube. For example, Sonic for Hire. That's a fictional video game show that takes the piss on old console games and new. Death Battle. That's a fictional show that depicts 2 fictional characters against each other. I heard some are good, some are bad, but I'd like to cover that show if it gets enough signatures. But for other shows, ones that do review shows, like for example, Angry Video Game Nerd, Nostalgia Critical, Dead Meat, I will not be covering them. They're review shows, so it'd be kind of like commenting on them, and I don't have the knowledge to do that, so don't even ask me. And number 5, if a TV show has a movie attached to it, like for example, the Pokemon movies, the Sailor Moon film trilogy, or the Sex and the City movie, yes, the 2 movies, I will be covering them, regardless of the canon or not. It's just that once I review a show, people will likely ask me, what about the movies? They're canon and non-canon to the shows. Would you at least cover them? Yes, I would. Which means I'll probably cover... Actually, I'll mention those when I get to the list. So, without further ado, let's begin the countdown. Number 10, Midsomer Murders. What can I say? I like the show. It's a really good murder mystery show. It's pretty much set in a fictional town where two detectives pretty much just solve murder after murder after murder and trying to find out who the killer is. Honestly, it's just such good mysteries. And it's got a fuckload of guest stars. Ones that I can't honestly count. And I've heard of the books. I have not read them. But a member of my family is a big fan of that show, and I have been watching it recently. I thoroughly enjoy the show. And yes, there's like over 20 seasons, but if I get enough signatures, I would love to cover the show. Honestly, it's just a fun murder mystery show. Number 9, Beyblade. Now, before you ask, I did say I will cover reboots. Yes, the one you saw is the reboot. But I am accepting the one with Beyblade. I will not be covering the original, so don't even ask me I'm covering it. But I honestly don't want to cover Beyblade Burst. I've never seen that show, and I heard it's not that great, so don't even bother asking me. But there's also another extension to this rule. I'll explain in a bit. The one I grew up with the most with Beyblade is the Metal series. The one with Jenga and his friends as they use spinning tops to defeat evil. It's such a corny show, but it's so goddamn funny. And the characters are honestly kind of complex. And the battles are pretty freaking awesome. I genuinely love Beyblade. It kicks ass. I love the animation. It's great. So, I will be covering the Metal trilogy. And before you ask, yes, there is a 4th season, but I will not be covering it. I don't think it's canon to the series. And it does the characters so dirty. It's pretty much a remake of Metal Fusion. But done in a bad way. No, to any Zero fans, I'm sorry, I will not be covering Shogun Steel. I'll only be covering the Metal trilogy, that's it. So don't ask me to cover the original, do not ask me to cover Beyblade Burst, And do not ask me to cover Shogun Steel. I will not be touching that season. Period. Thank you. But if it gets enough success, I can't wait to review this show. So, let it rip. Number 8. All Creatures Great and Small. What can I say? I generally like the show. I like its 4 main leads. Yes, I said 4. Helen is the fourth member of the group. I like the setting. I like its setting, and I do like the times they depict. Obviously, I'm not from those times, but honestly, it just feels real. And I generally like its main leads. James Herod is a good protagonist. Siegfried Farnett is just funny. Tristan Mean, the lovable dweeb that he is, the late drinker and the womanizer, and Helen, she's just a really great support to James. Honestly, they deserve each other. So if you want me to cover the show, I will. And yes, that does consider the reboot. I've heard of the remake, and I heard it's fine. And I heard rumors that there will be a 5th season coming out, so I will be covering both the original series and the reboot so wish me luck on that. Number 7. Avatar: The Last Airbender. Now, I totally forgot that I had it on the list, so I quickly switched it out from another show. I'll be mentioning that one in the comments. I'll be mentioning that one in the honorable mentions later on. This is just a fucking perfect show. Its characters are iconic, the story is fantastic, and the animation and fight scenes, wow! They are fucking awesome. And the voice talent is also great. Mei Whitman as Katara is perfectly done. Dante Basco is great as Prince Zuko. Oh, and do we not mention Mark Hamill as Fire Lord Azai? Perfect voice, perfect casting. Honestly, the show is fantastic. And yes, before you ask, yes, there's a sequel show, Legend of Korra. I will be covering that. Yes, it is kind of a sort of a reboot, but honestly not really. I will be covering Legend of Korra as well. So if you want me to review Avatar, give me enough signals and I'll be happy to review this show. I freaking love this show. It's just such a cool premise. And before you ask, I will not be covering that piece of shit movie. Yes, it is kind of canon to the show, but fuck that movie adaptation. I want nothing to watch that movie again. Piss off. We can all agree that the movie sucks. And you know what? I'm gonna screw with the numbers. Dairy Girls. Now, this is kind of a recent show, but I think it's funny. Honestly, its 5 main leads are some of the best. I think it's really fun done. I like Aaron as the leader of the group, the one trying to keep it together. Her cousin Orla is just so quirky and funny the way she does weird stuff. You got Claire, the realistic one of the group, the one that tries to see reason amongst the group. And I do like the actress that played Claire. She's really funny. But my favorite of the group has to be Michelle. I freaking love Michelle. She is goddamn funny. She honestly swears more than yours truly. And honestly, she cracks me up every time she's on screen. And then there's her cousin James, who's pretty much the human punching bag for Michelle to insult at every turn. And I think he does have his good funny moments too. Honestly, I do love the setting of the 90s. And I do like the characteristics of the characters. They're all well done, written, and I would love to cover the show. Yes, it did just get its third season. I haven't watched it yet, but I did watch the show before season 3 came out, and I freaking loved it. So, if it gets enough signatures, I would love to cover the show. Sonic Prime. Yes, there's a lot of Sonic shows out there I could be covering. Sonic X, Sonic Underground, Sonic Sat AM, The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. But Sonic Prime is the one I want to cover the most. Mostly because I fucking love multiverse stories. Doctor Strange 2, Everywhere and Everything All at Once. The Flash. I freaking love that multiverse is it. And I'm glad Sonic the Hedgehog is jumping on board with that idea. And from what I've heard, it's fucking amazing. Honestly, the show is beautifully stunning. I love the story. I've only up to the first season, but I do like the concept of this of this version, and I just loved it. If this gets enough signatures, please, I would love to watch the rest of the series. I freaking love this show. Wish me luck. True Blood. Yes, there's a lot of vampire movies that I could be covering. Not vampire movies, vampire shows. The Vampire Diaries. But I thoroughly like True Blood, for one. I mean, I've never read the books, but I heard they're pretty whack. But ever since my parents watched the show, I've been nothing but hooked. I love the idea of this show. Its characters are... Some of the characterization could be a bit off, but that's what I like about the show. The acting from the entire cast is beautifully done. Freaking love this. If it gets enough signatures, I would love to cover this show. Oh, and did I mention it's gory as fuck? Jesus. I mean, there's a fuckload of blood, a fuckload of sex scenes. I mean, it is gory. It is just fully up there. Oh, and yeah, they swear more than I do. I mean, it's just nothing but... Yeah, I'm not gonna say it because this video might get demonetized if I say all this nasty shit, but I freaking love this show. Until the last season. If this show gets enough signatures, please wish me luck if I get to season 7. But apart from that, I like this show. It's a great show, so wish me luck. Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all. I'm sorry, I had to do that. Honestly, it's fucking Pokemon. I mean, honestly, I don't even need to summarize what the show is about. Do I even need to? I mean, yes, it is over 20 seasons long, but honestly, who hasn't seen the show at this point? I would love to cover it, though. I think Ash as a character is very flawed, but he's a very interesting character. Even some of the side characters are pretty damn awesome. So I'd like to cover Pokemon. And yes, that does include the movies. I will be covering those. But, I forgot to mention in the Sonic entry, I will not be covering the live-action movies. Yes, they are canon, but they're off in their own universe. And before you ask, didn't you react on the Sonic 3 trailer? I did, but that was a different side project. Anyway, back to Pokemon. I freaking love Pokemon. It's a great show. If he gets enough signatures, please, I would love to cover this show. So, please get me get more signatures. So catch them all. Pokemon. God, that was terrible. Sorry. Sailor Moon. This is honestly my favorite anime. Yes, Pokemon is great. I heard Dragon Ball is good. I like Fairy Tail, but Sailor Moon was the first anime I ever watched, and I've been nothing but hooked on it. Its characters are complex, the fight scenes are amazing, and the story is, and I love the storylines. Yes, they kind of reused the same animation, but it's good animation. What are you gonna do about it? And not only can it be lighthearted and funny, it can also get dark when it wants to be. I mean, Jesus. But I thoroughly enjoyed this show. It's great, it's beautifully done, and the action is awesome. Give me enough synchronous, and I'll love to cover it. You are the one, Sailor Moon! Okay, before we get to the honorable mentions, a few runners up. Teen Titans. Honestly, the original series is great. And if you want me to cover Teen Titans Go, please pray with me. I will be covering Trouble in Tokyo. I heard that movie's pretty good. And yes, I will be covering the other two Teen Titans Go movies. Teen Titans Go to the movies and Teen Titans vs. Teen Titans Go. Yes, that is a movie. I actually kind of like it. Next up is Miraculous, Tales of Ladybug and Cat Noir. Now remember that Avatar got switched out for another show? This was that other show. Yeah, this is pretty much the French version of Sailor Moon, but I kind of enjoyed the show. I think it's kick-ass. It changes some things that I thoroughly enjoy. And I kind of like the layout of the series. Fairy Tail. Yes, this is the other anime I said was good, but this is honestly a freaking long show, and getting through season 8 is going to be a fuckload, but it could be a fun time. I thoroughly enjoyed Fairy Tail. It's a great show. Red Dwarf. Yes, I totally forgot about this show, and I forgot to add it to the top 10 list. But this is a great show nonetheless. Its character's iconic, the comedy is fucking funny, and I love the setting. Honestly, smoke me a kipper. I'll be back for breakfast. Shameless. And before you ask, I've heard about the UK version, but I honestly remember the American version a lot more. I thoroughly enjoyed this show. It's great. It's great. It's got really good humor. And honestly, William H. Macy does a fantastic job as the asshole Frank. It's a great show, and I love to cover it. And lastly, Once Upon a Time. Ever want to see a greedy version of your Disney? Well, go ahead and watch this show. Just ignore season 7. But if I get enough signatures, I would love to cover this show. It's got a great cast, an interesting story, and I thoroughly love the fantasy and the action elements. It's a great show. Alright then, let's get to it. And the number one show I would love to cover is yeah, y'all know. Oh, come on. Yeah. And you thought I left it off the list. No. This is the show I've been hooked on for, honestly, for nearly 11 years. Honestly, this show is so fucking amazing. And no wonder, it's been around since November 1963. And honestly, I freaking love this show. Its premise is intriguing, its characters are complex, and it's just a fucking great show. And yes, I will be covering the original series, the one from the olden times, and the requel series. What do I name my requel? A reboot sequel. It's pretty much a sequel to the original series, but also kind of a soft reboot. So I'm calling it that. The Doctor Who original series and the Doctor Who requel. Honestly, requel is such a good word. But honestly, I freaking love it. And and the actors that play the Doctor are so all great. And yes, even the bad ones. Honestly, if it gets enough signatures, I would love to cover the show. It's a great show, and kicks freaking ass. So yeah. Is there any I missed? Let me know down in the comments below and tell me why you want me to cover it. Sorry this video has been a bit long, but I don't know how else I was gonna top that. I will be checking back on this video again a couple of days before my announcement date, and I'll let you know what 3 shows I'll be covering at the middle of April. Starting Friday, I will be going back to the Sonic 06 videos. Until then, I'm the Shadow Reviewer, signing off.